Welcome to episode 35 of the Creative Train podcast. Creativity comes in so many forms: music, paint, dance, food, and words, just to name the obvious. But when we creatives give in to the muse, we know that it's the right thing to do. We've come to understand and honor the creative process. This episode's guest is a writer. She is a thinker, a spiritual woman, and someone who has ventured into the realms of her creative potential, guided by her spirituality, her curiosity, and her own insights. And she will share some of her insights and inspirations with you in a few moments. All aboard? So welcome, Lacey King, to the Creative Train podcast. And how are things in Colorado these days?
It's nice. We've been getting a lot of rain, which is really unusual, but it's great. We're pretty dry here. We're high up in elevation, but it's probably been raining almost every day for 2 weeks. I love it. I hope it stays that way.
So when I first put the word out on social media about looking for creative people who would want to share their stories about not only, and it's not just making a living in the arts, but it's feeling satisfied with what you do with creativity, reaching out and offering sometimes sanctuary to people through your art and your words and your creations. And you were one of the first people that chimed in, and I thought that was really cool because we only know each other through Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So what prompted you to click the like button and reach out?
I would consider myself, I guess, what is called a light worker now. I'm very spiritual. The purpose that I have in my life, the calling that I've answered to, is being of service to other people. And that comes with a lot of responsibility, which is great. But, you know, when the time comes, you have to answer, and maybe you're not necessarily prepared at the moment, you know, but you have to get yourself there. So the reason I wanted to was just to share whatever I'm guided to share, whatever downloads I've received, just sharing stories or experiences that I've had that can hopefully reach the right person, and maybe they'll reach the right person, and then so on and so forth. And we can create a chain reaction that can cause some real change in people's hearts and their minds.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say the term light worker, like, I'm kind of a new ager from back in the day, like the early 90s when it first started to catch on, and late 80s, early 90s. Now, when you say light worker, I think a lot of people would go, "Oh, that's just frou-frou. You've got no proof of that. Where's Neil deGrasse Tyson and all this? Like, there's no hardcore proof of it." What was something that happened in your early discoveries that made you realize that not only was this a calling, but that it was real?
Oh man, I've always been different. And that's just how I'll put it. You know, even when I was a little kid, I remember sitting on the couch and looking over to my dad or my mom or somebody and being like, "Oh, that's grandma or my nanny that's calling." And then the phone would ring maybe 5 seconds later.
Wow.
So I always knew who it was. In my house, I did not grow up in a peaceful environment. So in order to avoid chaos, fighting, I used to hide in my closet a lot. And I used to have these full-length conversations, and it seemed very normal to me at the time because I was a kid. And when I'm having these conversations, when I'm sitting in the closet, I'm being shielded. You know, I'm not dragged into whatever's going on in the house outside of that area.
Right.
And it would go on for quite some time until it was over. And then I would come out. And now I'm looking back at that and I'm realizing I was speaking to angels. I was speaking to those who protected me from the things that were happening at that time. And it used to happen all the time. And then the house that I grew up in mainly, we had just moved there from Miami. My family lost our house to Hurricane Andrew. So that tells you how old I am. I was little. And one Halloween, these two gentlemen came by, and they told us that his family used to live at that house. And their mother killed their dad. shot him for insurance money. Yeah. Pretended that she thought he was a burglar. He was from out of town. He came home. She killed him. And he stayed there. So I used to like see him, you know, in the corner of my eye. You would see a shadow peeking around the corner. You know, you'd look and he'd disappear, or I'm sleeping at night and I hear somebody yelling my name. Sitting in my room, my door slammed shut. I'm the only one home.
Wow.
So I've always had things happening, and it just seemed very natural. I didn't think good or bad. That was until later on. I mean, I grew up in the South, so my father was a Southern Baptist. And I think there's some meme that I've seen on Facebook where it's like, you know, some girls used to pretend that they were getting married when they were little. And I used to like make spells and soups in my backyard and mud and stuff like that, because it just felt very natural. You know,
It was
me and
just the
my
thing
friends
to
used
do.
to, yeah, me and my friends used to talk about magic before we understood the implications behind that. You know, it was just, we're children of nature. And all my friends that I flocked to were very much like that. So it's just always been a part of me.
It's interesting that you say that, because they often say that, like, you know, the artist, you know, the grown up artist is the child who never forgot how to dream. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that, you know, from your age you had that as a level of normalcy and almost
Yeah.
expectation. Nobody ever tried to like shame you into not believing in it. You know, you hear that a lot.
When I got older, that's when it really came into play. And so maybe it was just perceived as being little and, you know, being in my imagination.
Yeah,
But
yeah, your imaginary friend. Yeah,
yeah. So when I got older, that's when it did. But it never dissuaded me. I think more and more it pushed me to it.
that's great.
Um, yeah. I no matter what anybody said, I was just always going to be who I was. It was a train you couldn't stop.
My home here was built in 1904, and it used to be a schoolhouse.
Interesting.
And when we first moved in, you know, we'd have certain people over and whatever, and they'd say, "Who's that little boy with the striped white and blue shirt?" And we're like, "Oh, he's a remnant. He's left over. He's a ghost." And like,
Oh,
some people were like, "What?" The kids would see him. The dogs would see him. The dogs would walk around him, and it was, you know, he kind of became family in a way. And
aw.
and then one afternoon he came, and we were all as a family eating outside, obviously in the summer, and there was just a real hush that came over. You know, the birds stopped singing, the wind stopped blowing, and he appeared and then disappeared, and we've never seen him since. And
He left. He said
he's been
goodbye.
more than 30 years now. Yeah,
Yeah, he crossed over.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I didn't think anything weird of it. It's just, you know, I can say that to some people, and they'd look at me and say like, "Oh, what are you smoking?" kind of thing. I was like, nothing, nothing. It's the most unadulterated version of reality, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
How was your family with that? Did you have anyone else in your family who had the same sensitivities as you?
Not that they would ever admit it. I've spoken with a cousin about the gentleman that was still there. You know, we were talking about weird stuff that used to happen when we were younger, and she was like, you know, one day I was at your dad's house because my dad lived there long after I'd left, and she was like, I was sleeping in the room, and I opened my eyes, and there was a guy sitting in the chair. I was like, oh yeah, that's that guy that left. She's like, yeah, I've seen him a few times. So she's the only one that's ever really been brave enough. My family, I think my mom's very accepting of who I am. I think because I've just, again, always been very forward, you can't really tell me anything. And she's just very accepting of that. My dad was very religious. He's passed now. So that wasn't anything that I would ever consider talking to him about, because
Yeah,
he wouldn't have heard me anyway. You know, I have a lot of family on Facebook that sees me doing tarot and, you know, talking about stuff and spirituality and manifestations and all the things that I talk about. And I think they've just come to accept it.
yep,
Um, I've never heard anything opposite. So
that's
again,
good.
it's just like, well, that's just Lacey, and she's just going to do what she wants.
That's
And,
great. That, you
and
know,
that's it.
silently accepting somebody's strangeness or the things that they do that you don't do. I'm not calling you strange, Lacey. I'm just saying for other people, right?
Yeah.
Like to silently just accept it and move on is wonderful because so many people, I mean, even if you don't have any, say, psychic intuitions or abilities, but you're just one of
Hmm.
those weird kids, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so many people get condemned for that.
Yeah.
And who knows what kind of beauty could have come out of that person if they weren't sort of shamed into pushing away their weirdness and conforming.
Yeah. I mean, that's very true. I mean, just think of all the people that could bring something great into this world if they had money or they came from a family with money or they didn't live in a certain area or they weren't
Mhm.
a certain race in a certain time. I mean, the things that we could, the forward movement that we could really have right now, I think as a whole, humans are still in the dark ages. And so when I look at like the industrial revolution and all these great achievements that we've had in medical care, I always say, that had to be given to us. That had to
Mhm.
come from somewhere else. Because
Mhm.
in terms of the evolvement of our hearts and our minds of humans overall, I fully believe we're still in the dark ages. We're still doing things we were still doing in the real dark ages.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
that's how I feel. Yeah.
yeah. And I think I hate to sound pessimistic, but I think a lot of it has to come down to really facing some serious shit before a lot of
Hmm.
people really get serious about, what if there is karma? It's like, I've said that to some people. They say, "Oh yeah, karma's a bitch," and I said, "No, karma's not a bitch. Karma's just life balancing itself.
Yeah.
The fact that you were an asshole is now just coming back on you."
You gave it and now you're receiving it. I
Yeah,
mean, it's really simple. You get what you give. It's what as above, so below. I mean, there was do you know who Cat Williams is? He's an American comedian.
I know the name. I don't know who he is though.
So I saw him on a show. You just see like reels and stuff, and he was saying that he has come to understand that with the universe that there is a system that you have to pay into. You have to be kind, you have to give in order to receive, and the more that you give, the more you receive, and if you don't give, you will not receive. No matter what it is you're going to give, negative you'll receive negative, positive you'll receive
Yeah,
positive. Yeah.
it's balance. That's what it is, right?
A banking system, I think, is what he called it. Yeah.
Spiritual banking system. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's that old karma versus dharma dilemma. Like, what are you here
uh,
to learn versus what are you here to do?
uh, I mean, that's all encompassing, I think, too.
Hmm.
um, I was speaking with a friend the other day, and we're talking about, she's saying, "Well, I'm really happy and I'm learning and I'm growing, but I'm not where I want to be." And I was like, "There's never going to be a point where you're going to be alive in this body and you've reached a destination. There is no destination per se. This is a journey, and you're never going to live long enough to learn everything and to see
Yeah,
everything." I think, the next, wherever this next step goes after this life, that is possibly the destination. And while that is an ending, that is such a beginning as well. And then it's a new journey. So, yeah, that too.
yeah. You learn along your way, and you pave the road
Hmm.
with hopefully the best of your efforts and intentions.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's the same to
And it's
me.
when you say about your father was a Southern Baptist. I mean, to somebody who's not in or has never lived in that milieu. For me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm up in central Ontario, Canada. To me, Southern Baptist seems like the extreme version, like you'd see in the Blues Brothers movie, or
Hmm.
something like that. But you take that, if you say that your father might not have been open to what you were saying because he's so steeped in the like the biblical traditions, and
Yeah.
you take a few of the things that we've just said, like reaping what you sow, as above, so below, those simple things mean so much in our day-to-day lives if you just change the words that you use to say those.
Yeah, and we used to get into some pretty heated arguments about stuff. For example, he would talk about from the Bible, God gave man domain over the animals and the planet and all the things. So it's okay if people are doing whatever, whatever the hell they want to do. And I was like, but the thing is that, well, you say that, but the other part of it is that you're missing is that if you've been given domain, that means that you are in charge of taking care of it, right? You can't abuse it. You can't pollute the water. You can't steal from people. You can't starve children. You can't start wars. You can't be a rich person, because that shouldn't be, because you can't be rich on this planet without hurting others. You've been given this gift, and now you have to take care of it. And I remember that conversation, he just kind of got silent, because I don't think the thought went past that.
Yeah.
If you've been given this, then you have to take care of it.
Yeah. You don't just have to take advantage of it. You have to take care of it.
Exactly. It's not there for you to abuse. It's there for you to love and to cherish and maintain. Yeah. And that is the deal. It's not just there for you to take.
That's great. Yeah. I remember having that conversation with a teacher in high school, and I don't know what motivated me to say it, but he was a particularly religious guy, and I didn't go to a religion-based high school, but I said, don't you think the big difference is that, we as humans, we were given thumbs, whereas a lot of other creatures don't have thumbs. And imagine if we don't have thumbs, the things we couldn't build, the things we couldn't remove from others' way, the things we couldn't, and it's like, I thought, yeah, I often wondered if I was like kind of full of crap back then.
No, you're completely spot on. You've been given something to help. You know what I mean? To help yourself, yeah, but to help other creatures, animals, yourself, other humans, plants, all of it too. I believe that, and that's another thing too. I had a conversation with somebody, and when you're looking at studies of, I mean, let's say gorillas and the things that they're capable of, or orangutans. And I mean, there was some reel, and maybe you saw it, where these people were floating down a river somewhere, and they saw an orangutan that had some leaf on its face. And I'm guessing that it was hurt, and it had the knowledge to apply this leaf.
Right. I did see that.
To cure itself. And my friend was saying, that's such a humanistic trait, or, this is a human thing that this animal is doing. And I said, you're only saying that because we can do those same things, but who's to say that's a human trait? Who's to say that that's belongs to a human? Right. If they're doing it too, that's not just us. Yeah. That's not just them trying to relate to us, or them being related to us in some sense. It's all in one, I can get on tangents sometimes.
Tangents are, you know what, Lacey, I'm really enjoying this conversation, because we haven't talked about artistic things or creative things, but we're getting down to the soul of what we are as people. And as creators, we don't just have to put shit out on YouTube all the time. We can create an energy around us that makes people feel comfortable. That's why I always say, in all of my podcasts, I make the distinction between artists and creators. And a few people have said, well, what's the difference? And I say things like that. But I can say that fully, clearly with you, because I know you get it.
Yeah.
And when you say that about a very humanistic thing, if you go back to, like, even when North America was, say, I'm doing air quotes here, discovered, all of the medicines that existed before those pesky Portuguese and Spaniards got here.
Oh, yeah.
And they're coming back now. It's like, you see Asford, ancient wisdom, healed this, and it's like, yeah, it's not new. How did those people know? How did that gorilla or orangutan know to put that leaf on his face?
Because it has a consciousness just like we do. Right. And that's not saying that it has a human consciousness. It just exists in itself. And it's not human or animal. I think it's just because we're all connected, and it goes so much further than our titles and these words that we've come up with. And we identify through these words that we've come up with because that's what we've had to do to survive and to thrive. But when it comes down to, when it comes to those words, it starts to get cloudy, and it starts to get boxed in.
They get limiting.
Yes, but it really has nothing to do with it. It's just all of us, we are connected. And And that's the connection to Mother Earth as well. I mean, I could get like really deep here, you know?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. So when you said you came from the South, like what state were you living in Southern US, I take it?
So actually, I was born in England.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my whole family's still there. Only me, my mother, and my brother and sister live in America. And we lived in England. My father was American. He met my mother when he was stationed there. And then we moved to Germany in West Berlin when the wall fell. We were there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my parents actually stood on top of it when it was coming down. Um, and then after that, we came to America and we lived in Florida. And then we lost our home to Hurricane Andrew. And then we ended up in Georgia because my dad wanted to be closer to his mother who lived in Tennessee.
Right.
And it's funny because he had an opportunity to go anywhere and we were going to go to Colorado. And I ended up here anyway. So I guess it was just meant to be. Yeah.
Do you find that, like, when you say that it was meant to be, is there something about where you are in Colorado, like energetically, that is particularly resonant with you?
Yes, but it's strange because there's been a lot of fighting in Colorado, like the gold
Really?
rush, they came through here, and
Okay.
Buffalo soldiers were here, and there's a lot of fighting between natives and the settlers. And where I'm at, particularly in southern Colorado, there's a lot of remnants of that. And I feel, and also that Tesla had a lab in Colorado Springs.
Really? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of paranormal activity here. My understanding of this, I feel like the amount of blood that was shed in the gold rush and the fighting in the wild, wild west here, especially, it has soaked into the land, and I feel like it's affecting people. There's a lot of crime here. There's a lot of crazy road rage incidents. There's a lot of angry people here. It's not everywhere. Colorado has a lot of great people too, but you can feel it.
Wow.
Yeah, you can definitely feel it. It's lovely here. The mountains, it's beautiful here, but in terms of that, like the spirituality and feeling things, there's a lot here. For sure.
Is it a mountainous area where you're at?
Yeah, I can see mountains when I walk in my backyard and when I walk out front. Pretty
That's
lucky.
wonderful. That's
Yeah,
really
and
wonderful.
the Arkansas River runs through Colorado where I'm at, and I mean literally I could just walk down to it.
One of the things that I like to ask guests who come on the podcast is about how their day-to-day life is guided or influenced by their process.
Mm.
Do you have tarot as a part of your regular process? Is it a daily thing for you, or do you do tarot strictly when you need guidance? I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes sense. No, it's an everyday thing. I carry my cards everywhere with me to work. When I go to the store, I keep them in my car in a bag. I always have them with me.
That's great.
Just because I pick up a lot of things from people, and I can be okay one minute, and then I'm just out of my mind the next minute, and I'm like, is this my stuff? What is happening to me?
Yeah.
So I pull the cards out a lot, or things that I see in my mind, or things that I see, like the only way that I can say that is forecasted to me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read more or know more. Situations in my life that are going on, or, I get a lot of signs, angel numbers. I'm not sure if you know much about that, but, numbers that repeat.
Right.
That was a big thing with Tesla too, 3, 6, and 9, I believe. And speaking of that, when I was talking about how we have been given information from other realms, other sources, I believe that he was receiving information. I believe that he connected with extraterrestrial spiritual realms But that's besides the point. I just had to throw that in there. Sorry, but
No. That's, and I heard a very similar thing about the about AI, that
yeah.
that AI, for all the years that we've had computer development, this sudden explosion of like really frighteningly, I don't want to say
Hmm.
intuitive, because intuitive implies a mind behind it, but that it was given to us. It wasn't developed.
I think it was. I mean, I just think it was. And I think that as all things, we're going to abuse it, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
I think so many things have been given to us because there's a love for us, because our hearts are seen, our minds are read, our connection is felt. Um, and so we are given this help to progress, to thrive. And I think that oftentimes it gets into the wrong hands,
Mhm.
and these things are abused. And so I think AI can be great. If I could have an idea, or if I could control how AI was developed, I would use AI in a sense of doing operations that are extremely critical. If you mess up one little thing, you're going to change somebody's whole life. And that's
Right.
like brain, operating on the brain or the heart, or replacing organs or something to that effect. I would want AI to help people who are elderly and need support around the house, instead of being put into homes where nobody's really taking care of them, or having more support for these medical
Yeah.
professionals that are in these elderly home, or these communities where elderly people live, or for people who are paralyzed, or for people who are in comas, or just for people who are in a state that can be taken advantage of.
Hmm.
This is where I would want to see it. That's
Yeah.
where I would want to see it,
And
instead of, yeah,
that's your benevolence showing through. And that's
maybe.
wonderful. Not maybe, it is. I mean, so many people go, "Oh, I want to use AI to help me make a shopping list." And I'm like,
What?
"Really? You need to use AI to make a shopping list to know what you want to eat?"
That's
Or
silly.
yeah, or in my realm of being a musician, I think that there's at least a double-digit percent of material on Spotify that is strictly AI created. It's not human created at all, meaning they don't pay anybody anything for it. So, I know people that will use, they'll have an idea for a song and they'll throw it into Chat GPT and say, make me a folk song out of this, or make me a heavy metal song out of
What?
this. And then, do the band in the style of Metallica or Iron Maiden, and AI will take over, and then they'll get the song and they'll post it, and it shows up as their original work.
That's complete and utter BS. I mean, the beauty and the creating of it is where the, the deliciousness lies, if that makes sense. Like
Absolutely.
the creation of it, and seeing it and hearing it in your head, and
Yep.
translating that into an instrument, is like the beauty of it. And that's sad. Ugh, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. It's just that
Yeah.
we're going to take full advantage of it,
Yeah.
full
But
advantage.
yeah. And then it's going to come back and bite us somehow, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed at humans where we would create a movie like The Terminator and then
Now we're
scare
living it.
everybody who's ever seen it. Yeah, and then they're like, you know what? Let's make that. And it's just so, I mean, it's just so self-fulfilling prophecy. It's just really masochistic. And I don't know
Yeah.
why we're like this.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. So when you talked about things that were forecasted to you, mentioned before about people asking you about money or job situations, are you generally open to people asking you for um, insights?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I don't mean to, and sometimes people don't ask me things. There was somebody I was working with not long ago, and I think that I was just saying a lot of things that she was thinking, and I can't even remember what it was that I said. And she was like, "You're really starting to freak me out, Lacey." And I was like, I don't mean to. I'm sorry. I'll turn it off. I just feel you. I'm just connected to you.
Yeah.
So we're flowing as one, and so I'm just saying what you're thinking. I can't help it, but
Yeah.
I'm very open. Yeah. Again, it's all about being of service to others. In my life, I don't think there could ever be a better job than to be in service of what I would say of God's greatest love. And so to be a part of that and to share in that is just, amazing.
You sent me a short story that you wrote when we were first discussing what does Lacey want to talk about on the podcast. Do you find that like your writing is influenced by the more subtle energies or these forecastings, or do you compose fiction around what you know as to be fact in your intuition?
My process is strange. I guess it just depends on how influenced I'm feeling in the moment or how much love I'm feeling in the moment. A lot of times, and I know this sounds strange, is I guess so. In tarot, right, we have a card called the Empress card, and it can often be represented in the cards as a woman who is pregnant, about to give birth to something, a child, a creation. Um, and there's been a lot of times where I'm having these so-called pains, and I'm super emotional, and I have to get it out. I have to get it out. I have to get it out. And so I start writing, and I'm writing, and I keep going, and I keep going, and I keep going, and I'm crying, and I'm upset. And when it finally is finished, then it stops. So it's kind of like giving birth in a sense, in that way, where I have to push this out and I have to get it out.
And do you
If
feel
that
that's
makes sense.
connected to something that's in your life, or is that something that maybe you brushed up against the quote wrong person during the day, and you have to get there like something out like
To, um, Possibly. I mean, and again, it could be all those things and at the same time. Um, they came into contact with me, or I'm feeling what they're feeling, and I'm supposed to be the one that's going to push it out or deliver this message. And then sometimes it's just me. If you can hear my dog, I'm sorry. She's a
no,
puppy.
that's
She's
fine.
all over the place.
What's your dog's name?
Her name is Leah.
Nice. Nice.
So it just depends. I can feel other people's pain, and I'm crying, and I really need to write this out, or I really need to say something, or I really need to get this down on paper. Yeah, both,
It's
I guess. Yeah.
it's kind of like for me, I have like a really vivid dream cycle,
Yeah.
and the dreams that I feel most compelled to write down are those ones where I have no idea where it came from. Um, you
That's
know,
source.
and then when you look back, I can look back on they're all on my phone, right? I'll wake up
Yeah.
sometimes and uh, dictate lyrics into my notes or
Oh,
whatever, and I'll talk about this dream that I have and actually hear myself going in and out of sleep. Even Paul McCartney said the same thing. He woke up and started writing down lyrics. He doesn't know where they came from. But if we
yeah.
honor that, I think we encourage it and we open ourselves to more of it.
And like, and how cool is it, and how wonderful it is to know that source wanted to give it to you and trusted you to put it out there,
Yeah.
you know? And that's happened to me too, a lot more in the last year, where I have heard songs that don't exist, and
Maybe we
repeating
should
melodies.
collaborate.
Maybe, yeah. I hear them. And so I'm like, okay, I wake up and I get one of my notes and I record the way that the music sounded in my head, or I record the words. And it's like, one dream I had, and I don't know who it was. It was a song on the radio, and this woman is singing these words, and the melody went this way. And then I woke up and I was like, I got to write this down right now, right now. So
Wow.
that happens. That's been happening more frequently.
That's great. And you keep track of all these things, right? And keep them?
Yeah. So there was one night I was asleep, and I was woken up by angels. And this is how I'm going to this is who I believe was here with me. And I keep a deck of cards beside my bed, and I'm like, okay, so what do you want to tell me? And so I said, okay, well, there's 14 of you here. I felt 14, 12 angels, and then 2 spiritual beings from some realms that I have not identified yet. And I heard the name Theo, and I was like, well, what is that? And so I just started looking up the name Theo and archangels, and apparently it's a name that this woman had came up with a long time ago to explain the presence of 12 archangels. But I felt all 12 of them, and then 2 more beings. I guess we would call them maybe extraterrestrials. And I know I sound crazy, but I had no idea. I had no idea that existed. Yeah.
You don't sound crazy to me. This could be a whole other conversation about that. Yeah. My connection with that goes right back to when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And, if anyone's listening to the podcast at this point still, they're going to go like, oh, Mark's going off the deep end here. For full disclosure, I don't have any shame in talking about it, but I had very direct, real interactions from the time I was
really
8 till 13 years.
Really?
Yeah. Not all were very good. And then later in life, when I was in my teens and 20s, a lot of things became more revealed to me. And the good guys started to speak through.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not alone. And I don't know how it's kind of crazy to me when people are like, well, there's nobody else but us. And I'm like, are you not looking at the size of all this? There's just no way. How can we be alone? How can we have the knowledge, have the words to express other presence, other beings, and have the ideas that others could exist, and then think, nah, we're alone? There's just no way.
Yeah.
There's no way.
It's an arrogance in a way. Not in a way. It's an arrogance to assume that humanity in its current state is the penultimate state of evolution.
Well, yeah. And that goes back to, when we're talking about gorillas or orangutans and people are like, oh, they have humanistic traits. No. It's not just, it doesn't belong to us. You're just saying that because in your mind, you think we're the ultimate. I don't think so. I've met quite a few humans and I don't think we're that great, but
I like that. I've met quite a few humans.
We're not all that great. There's some good ones. There's some really good ones in between, but man, there's no way that we could be alone. Or when somebody says, like, we're just living on a dead rock, how can you say that? I mean, this planet, this earth gives us every single thing that we need in every single waking moment. How could you ever think that this could be a dead thing? There's just no way. Yeah.
And even if you take, it was a reel, we go back to the social media reels, a fellow that I saw, it was sent to me. I'll send it to you. It was really good. But it was basically like, before money, we were all pretty well off, independent, essential vaccines and medical care and certain conveniences of construction and building materials. When our great-great-grandparents lived off the land, we were doing all right. Nobody had any money.
Yeah.
It wasn't until
and we were bartering and trading.
Yeah. And when we became industrialized, that's when the shit hit the fan.
Yep.
That's when the Great Divide happened.
That goes back to, we were given this great information to become more, and then people found ways to take advantage of it. And again, I go back to Tesla and all his creating and making these discoveries. He wanted to share his information free. He wanted to take advantage. What about, oh my goodness, what's the gentleman's name? Not Newton. Who am I thinking of? Edison, stealing his work.
Oh, yeah.
And, these rich men who basically starved him to death. And he died penniless and alone. And then they took everything that he had and they kept it for themselves. And so, once again, we had this industrial revolution, that you talked about. And then we had people that took advantage of it, and this gift that was abused.
Yeah.
And it happened so much.
Yeah. We just had a few connection issues there and you froze up. You were talking about Tesla, right? Being taken advantage of.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
We got
It's just how I heard it on my end. But yeah, whenever anybody has a great idea and they want to bring it to the world, they get either, shut down pretty quick or something more extreme. Yeah.
Yeah, because people are sold on the idea of money. I mean, it's literally a piece of paper that says, I owe you a $5 bill. This bill is worth the $5 of value that I just made up. Here you go. It doesn't even exist.
No.
We should be trading. We should be helping each other. We should be living in villages and small governments. I mean, the Native Americans had a government system that in America, we use now for state government, and they had small nations and they connected that way. And we use that to build state governments, little government entities, not the federal, but that's how we came up with it here too. I think that's what we should go back to.
Yeah, and even those tribal groups warred amongst themselves, and there was a lot of bloodshed even before it was called government. But what needed to be done got done, and they got on with life.
Yeah.
And how long did that go on before official government was established? Probably quite a while.
Until settlers came and ruined it. But I mean, people will say, well, they were warring with each other, or we got to talk about slavery, and people really love to throw out there, well, you sold each other. And I mean, conflict does exist. And how I see something like that is if somebody's being abused, right? And I'm going to use the most horrible example. If there's a child that's being abused, I don't think it's any less better or any less wrong if somebody else came up and said, well, you're already abusing that kid. How about I smack them too? Yeah. And that's, there's no right or wrong. There's no, because you're wrong, that cancels out my wrong. Yep. Basically, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Two people doing wrong doesn't make it right just because they both agree.
Yeah. But sorry, that was me going off on a little tangent.
Absolutely. You know what? Yeah. I mean, this is a really great way to conduct a podcast about creativity, because it's not just creating, physical art forms or songs or paintings or anything like that. It's about creating your own reality.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, I mean, from an artist's perspective, I mean, the self-doubt thing plays in huge, right? We can come up with a great idea, sketch it and start to make it, and then somehow the algorithms point us to other people that are doing it. You go, oh, my stuff sucks compared to that. I'm going to stop doing it.
Yeah.
So that's self-doubt. But I mean, when you were saying about, working in manifesting, those things really do have to play a part in any creative process.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's hard to not doubt yourself.
When we get rid of greed, when we get rid of the idea of, or the illusion of power or being better or prettier or skinnier, when we come back to each other, that's when real evolution can begin. Until we get rid of these, I guess people would call them earthly matters. I would call them material thoughts, obsessions.
That's a great way to put it.
We're never going to be able to do that. And I believe, so I know that there's big shifts happening right now. I understand that from the information that's been given to me. I am not going to see that because that's a long time coming. I would relate this to the very beginnings. We're seeing the very beginnings of the stage of this change, of this shift in people and humanity, so to speak. I would liken it to the American Revolution, though I am British, so that's a sensitive topic. But um,
Yeah, they kind of handed it to you, didn't they?
whatever. But
I know. Well, hey, I'm from Canada. We're still under their rule, apparently.
yeah,
We had the
well,
friggin'
yeah, I
king
guess
here
we're
to open up Parliament this week. It's like, come on.
yeah,
I find that so gross.
yeah. That's a whole nother discussion. But I would liken this time to be in the example that I can think of is when they started to have little whispers about becoming their own, breaking away, and they're hiding in these rooms and they're talking about it quietly, and these ideas start to develop,
Mm.
and then you start to see the shift. Though that wasn't as long as a time period of change or as big as this change is coming as this shift. But that's how I think of it. Like, we're in these rooms and we're talking and we have these ideas and things are going to start happening. And unfortunately, I won't live long enough, but I'm grateful and hopeful to be able to be a part of that, to catapult people towards that, so that people can be free and we can come back to each other.
Yeah.
And be one again.
And
Yeah.
let's just hope that the pain that gets us to there isn't so bad.
But that goes back to the Empress card. That's birth.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. I'm going to read your mind.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. It's a vibe,
It's
right?
birth. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a birth. Yeah. It all has to come down.
Have you ever come out of a writing session where you went into it really motivated and you worked and you worked and you worked and you came out of it on the other side, so to speak, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah. 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 I'll have a pen and I'm like scribbling on the page and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I can't even help it.
Yeah.
Or sometimes when I'm reading and I pick up a message and my cards are like flying out of my face. And I know I did a reading once for some people at a metaphysical fair, and something overcame me, and I'm talking really fast. And I mean, the cards are literally slapping me in the face, like flying out of my hand. And sometimes you just get so caught and they're pushing these messages through you. By the time it's done, you're like, holy shit, like what the hell just happened to me?
Wow.
You're out of breath. I mean, literally out of breath. And all I was doing was talking, but it's just,
And you feel the strong need for sugar?
yeah. Like I need a drink, that was wild. But I love it. And I'm so happy that I get to be who I am. And I'm so happy that I get to help.
And it's heartening for me to connect with you and to talk about the things that we've done, because a lot of these things I can't talk about with a lot of people.
Yeah.
There, like I said in that introduction, it's just, from the conversation that we'd had through Messenger and email and the story you sent me, I could feel the vibe. And I thought, well, what if I say she's a spiritual woman and she takes exception to the calling her spiritual, because some people think that's a bad thing, but it's like, I'm gonna just, I'm just gonna let the words come out. And I recorded it just this evening. I wrote it like a week and a half ago. And
I mean, it's just the words that are identified with what we're understanding. That's just the words, and I don't mind being called spiritual,
no,
at all. No. I mean, I could be called a lot worse. So yeah. I'll take it.
Yeah. I was going through my
crazy.
I was called a brain dead gas bag earlier this week. And
whoa.
Yeah, for just entertaining the notion of something, and it's somebody who an extended family member, and I just blocked and deleted them on social media.
Well, that's harsh.
Yeah,
but see, again, that goes back to we are in the dark ages. We are so in the dark ages. We are. You don't
have to whisper. I get it. But the darkness is right before the dawn.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as an inquisitive person myself, talking to an intuitive person, could I appeal to Lacey to take a few moments, collect your thoughts, whether you want to use cards or not, and offer some words of positivity and encouragement in these dark times for the people who are truly seeking light in this time? Take whatever time you need.
So I'll reference a song by Florence and the Machine. And I hear her singing this line again and again and again. So I'm moved to share it. And we're talking about the darkness. She says in this song, it's always dark before the dawn. And I'm going to be a crybaby.
I'm already starting. So that's all right. That's fine.
I say to you and whoever is hearing this, whenever you hear it, we're going to get through it. A lot more is going to happen, but it has to, because things have to change. And there has to be real consequences, like you said, in order to change the hearts and the minds of people. So don't be discouraged by those who are telling you one thing when you really know another. Follow yourself, follow your heart. I'm right beside you through all of this too, holding on. So I send my love out to you. Please send your love out to me, and just trust that we will pull through this. Absolutely.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that can go into any situation that anybody's dealing with, whether it's a domestic situation, or like the political situation, or they're pissed off at their neighbor for playing music too loud. It's those simple words, right?
God loves you.
Yep.
And I know that. Yeah.
I'm going to go back and I'm going to time stamp that moment. An hour and 17 and 50 minutes, or whatever it was, 17.5 minutes.
Nice.
Because I think those things are the big things that people need to hear. And that transcends all the other stuff. It transcends politics. I mean, if you take politics and money and everything out of it, and you go, what am I left with? You're left with your hands.
We're left with each other. I was going to say, fuck these assholes, fight back, but I'll save that.
Say it again. Say it again.
Fuck these assholes, fucking fight back, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fight back. And that's another thing that's going to happen too. But I think, again, if there's a fight, and this is the biggest thing that I want people to know, is like, when you have these police officers or these whoever people that are in charge, so-called in charge, just remember, they are people. They are not gods. They are not your God. They are not, they can say they're kings, but they are a person. They are just a person. And whatever they tell you they are is simply an illusion. They're delusional. It doesn't exist. These are people choosing to do this to other people. Look at it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it takes away the fear, right? It takes away the trick of the mind that keeps people in place, that makes them shut up. They're simply another person, and that's it.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Yeah, it's who they represent and whether you want to submit yourself to that.
Yeah, it's all tricks. It's not real. They're just people doing this to other people, and that's it.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, this has been fun, don't you think?
Yeah, I liked it. Thank you for having me.
I mean, we could go on for hours, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rabbit holes we haven't even gone down yet. But
there's a ton.
Yeah. But I think, a big takeaway from this, when we talk about people who are, and let's not even say artists, let's say investigating subtle parts of their minds and their hearts, is that to honor that and to not doubt that you have the ability, but to just honor it and move on, embrace it, and see where it takes you. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, and that's something that I struggle with. I get very, I guess, self-conscious or weary, or maybe afraid of stepping out and showing myself. But as time goes on now, more and more, I'm I'm being guided to come on out. So,
well, you're going to be on all the streaming platforms early next week.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
hey guys.
Yeah, this goes to YouTube through Podbean, and it goes to 6 or 8 of the other main streaming platforms. So,
well, that's cool. I guess as Diana Ross says, I'm coming out. So here I come.
Coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great song. Thanks for the earworm. I'm going to be living with that for the next 3 or 4 days. I'm like, I'm coming.
It's such a good song.
Get out of my head.
It's a good song.
Do you sing?
I do. Yeah, I do.
What's your favorite song these days, other than Florence and the Machine?
Oh man. Oh, I am for months. I am just obsessed and sing my heart out to Zombie by the Cranberries. I love that song so much.
That's cool.
So much. All her yodeling. I'm so into it. Yeah.
She apparently after the band split up, her and her husband moved not too far from where I live, within an hour.
God rest her soul.
Yeah, she passed away last year, right?
It was a few years ago. To me, Dolores O'Riordan was a gift. The same way that Whitney Houston was a gift. And I'm just, in the time that I'm alive, I'm like, damn, I'm so lucky just to see and hear this music and see these artists, even if they're gone, just to be able to be in that time period where they existed and you got to see their work. It's how lucky am I?
Yeah. It's like if you go to a picnic and you're really, really hungry and there's 300 things to eat and you're determined to eat all 300 of them. For somebody that can appreciate art, you want to hear all the music, you want to look at all the paintings, you want to feel all the fabrics, you want to taste all the food, and it's almost too much, but just enough at the same time when you find.
I think there's a British actor, and I cannot remember his name. It was when Sting died, and he said something like,
Sting died?
I'm sorry. Not Sting. Sorry. David Bowie.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you freaked me out for a second. I was like, what?
I was just watching a reel when people were doing those pranks on people, and they're like, hey, did you hear so-and-so died? And people are like, oh. But when David Bowie died, and is his name Paul Simon? I don't know, but
Simon and Garfunkel?
He's a British actor. And have you ever seen the movie Paul? Why can't I remember his name?
No.
He was in the movie Paul, and he has some really good funny movies out like that. Oh God, Simon Pegg, that's his name. And he said, how lucky were we to be alive during the time when David Bowie was here,
right?
And that's a really good way of seeing it, So yeah.
When I heard David Bowie died, I cried for most of the day. I didn't even cry when my dad died.
Yeah.
And that, a few weeks after I got over, have you listened to Black Star?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I listened to that on repeat over and over and over and over. And I thought of David Gilmour from Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And I made a social media post. I said, God, please let me outlive David Gilmour, because I don't want to have to live through his passing.
I was like that when Michael Jackson
David Gilmour
died.
Outlived me. Yeah.
Yeah. I did that when Michael Jackson died. I was devastated. I was devastated. Yeah. Because he was, in the 80s when I was coming up and growing up, he was everything. And I'm sure people have their opinions about him, but if you really listen to his words and his music, he was just as much of an activist, and he fought for kids and our planet, and he just really cared. Mm-hmm. And his messages will live on forever. But when he passed, man, I was a mess. Mm-hmm. I remember me and my friends went somewhere to a restaurant or something that night, and I was just distraught.
Yeah.
And there was a guy there. They were doing like karaoke, and he's like, "Oh, I'm getting married tomorrow," and I'm just sitting in the corner like drinking, like, yeah, who cares,
Yeah.
whatever. And he's like, everybody wants to talk about Michael Jackson, and we want to sing his songs. And he's like, I don't care, let's move on from that. And I know I screamed something like, "You're gonna be divorced in a year." I was really mean, but I couldn't contain it, because why would you say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know
Let's
the band
move on.
Rush?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like when Neil Peart died.
Yeah.
And there was all those memes that went around of all the bar bands are going to look for an easy Rush cover to play tonight. It's like, how do you cover Michael Jackson?
You can't.
You
I
can't.
mean, just as you can't.
And there's been a few Bowie tunes that I've always loved, and I will play them in the private of my room up here. And I've thought sometimes that I'll be brave enough to record it
Hmm.
or perform it, and I can't.
Well, that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, even if you did, that's just paying homage
Yep.
to a great, And when he passed, I listened to Under Pressure a lot,
Yeah.
a lot. I still do.
Yeah. I found
That's a whole. Go ahead.
Sorry, that's a whole what?
That's a whole other topic, though, too.
Okay. Well, episode 2 of the Lacey King podcast.
Yeah,
Because
music.
I mean, our creative inspirations are a big thing as well. It's not just what our output is or our sharings or postings. It's like, what makes you want to get up and do things.
I mean, yeah, like Michael Jackson, when he put out the Earth song, and I was a young kid when that song came out, and I'm watching this video, and he's talking about, the damage that we've done to this world and to animals, and he's showing how we're tearing down forests and we're hurting each other and we're hurting animals. And I remember just crying my eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably understood more than I should have at such a young age, but I was just like, he's right. Look what we've done. I mean, he literally says that, look what we've done to the world.
Yeah.
How can we do this?
Yeah. Well, you were not a normal kid, so you perceived more.
I was a strange kid, but that's okay, because
we find each other, don't we? We
do. We gravitate. We gravitate to each other, and that's great too, because I would rather be in this club than any other club any day of the week, hands down.
Absolutely. So are you a Gen Xer then?
I am not. I'm a millennial, older one.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what year were you born?
86.
Oh. I was 16 at the time, so.
My brother's 12 years older than me, so he is too.
Yeah.
A Gen Xer, yeah. And my sister too, yeah.
Yeah. Well, consider yourself an honorary Gen Xer tonight.
Oh, thank you.
You passed the test.
I've been around older people who are much older than me my whole life, so it's all my friends are older than me. It's just that's just how it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like the thing with, if we can use the air quotes term old soul, that you're not drawn to people of your own generation.
I'm really not. It's strange. My daughter, I had her when I was 19, but I was just talking to her about that the other day, and she's like, "Mom, you really need people your age." And I was like, "But I don't know how to talk to them."
No, God, no.
And she's like, "You do, Mom." And I was like, "But I don't know what to say to them. Like, they don't get me,
That's okay.
Okay.
I get you. Yeah. And it's like, even when I was, in my teens, I didn't really have like girlfriends, but I had more female friends than men friends, or
That's
guy
nice.
friends. I guess you could say guy friends. It just didn't happen that way. All those, guys, just discovering testosterone were all one way, and I was like, I want to play some music in my bedroom and be really quiet in the dark.
Yeah.
So,
I get that. Well, they probably just felt very safe with you, so that's nice.
Yeah. Any parting words you would like to offer people as we, I guess we're kind of drawing to a close now? I've really enjoyed
Thanks for having me.
I've
Me too.
totally enjoyed this. It's like, it's made my whole week or month or year, whatever you want to call it.
I really thank you for having me. To anyone who's listening, hang in there, and I'm gonna say it nicely. Don't take shit. Fight back, man. Just don't let them tread on you. Fight back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to hit the stop record button, and we'll continue on for a few moments after this, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Lacey, for coming by. It's been a real pleasure.
I had so much fun. Thank you so much, Mark.
So a great takeaway from that is how to honor the subtle energies that are around us all the time. Sometimes we think of it as just a whisper in our ear or a poke on the shoulder that inspires us to do something or create something, write something. And it was really nice to talk with Lacey for that time because I know she gets it. Her own forms of creativity in writing are wonderful, adventurous, and inspiring. And I'm glad we got to talk about the topic of being an artist versus being a creator, because creators do more in a way than just art. They manifest. We artists get to decorate the space and the time in between.